Ayrton Senna da Silva was born on March 21, 1960, in the city of São Paulo. He was the son of Mr. Milton da Silva and his mother, Mrs. Nide Senna da Silva. Ayrton had an older sister named Vivian and a younger brother named Leonardo. Unlike some celebrities who had to go through difficult times in childhood, Ayrton came from a wealthy family. His father was a businessman. As a child, according to his own family, Ayrton was very restless. From an early age, speed was already present in his life. He was very fond of pranks in which he had to run and loved watching the classic Japanese cartoon Speed Racer. At the age of 4, his father decided to give a gift to his son, a go-kart cart that had been made by himself. But, of course, it must never have crossed his mind that this gift would change little Ayrton's life forever. All his agitation and his stagnant manner made his family wonder if this would be the ideal gift for the boy, but as soon as he started driving that cart, Ayrton surprised everyone because of his ease to drive that vehicle. Even though he was still very young, the passion for cars only increased over the years. At just 9 years old, Ayrton already had so much notion of how to drive that his father began to let him drive some of his cars inside one of his rural properties. The history of art on the tracks began in kart races. When he officially started competing at the age of 13, in his first race, he took his first victory, and that was in July 1973. In 1974, 2 years later, he won his first South American karting championship. His first national title came a year later, in 1978, when he was still just 18. He became Brazilian champion again in the next 2 years, in 1979 and 1980. The Karting World Championship, however, ended up being in the almost. In 1979 and 1980, Ayrton was only the runner-up. But it was during the 1979 World Championships, which took place in Estoril, that he first wore the yellow helmet that would henceforth become his trademark. At that World Cup, there was a rule that said that every helmet in every country had to have a unique paint. It was then that the aerographer Sid Mosca had the idea of painting Ayrton's helmet with the colors yellow, green and blue. After the runners-up finish in 1979 and 1980, the young Ayrton decided it was time to try something new. It was then, in the year 1981, that he began to compete in Europe. In his first championship, Ayrton once again was the standout and won the English Formula Ford 1600 Championship, winning 12 of the 20 races he contested representing Ralph Furman's team. However, despite the title, with the end of the season, Ayrton had to give up his dream and leave Europe. This happened because he could not get sponsors to support himself in Europe. In addition, his family was not fully supportive, because of the dangers that the racetracks offered. This eventually caused him to abandon his dream and return to Brazil. Now, he would go to work helping out in the family business. However, the passion for the tracks did not leave his heart. Before long, in February 1982, Ayrton decided to return to Europe so that he could continue his career as a driver. That same year of 1982, Ayrton was crowned European and British champion of Formula Ford 2000, but now with even better numbers, 22 wins in 27 races, representing the team of Dennis Rush. In 1983, Ayrton started competing in Formula 3. Right off the bat, he won the Premier League for Dick Bennett's team. A curious fact that few know is that it was not discovered by the Brazilians, but by the English press. After the success he had made at Silverstone, a headline came out in which the name of the circuit was written as Silverstone, as a way to pay tribute to Ayrton's good performance. At the end of 1983, Ayrton was invited to do a test with a Williams Formula One car. Some people who watched that test he did say that he didn't have it that easy and that it was hard to believe it was the first time he was driving a Formula One car. Despite having impressed everyone, Ayrton ended up going to a slightly smaller team, that is, his destination in Formula One would be Toleman in 1984. But in the beginning, things weren't easy for him in Formula One. Ayrton suffered a great impact because he was not yet accustomed to the weight of the car and also to the duration of the races. But Ayrton Senna always exuded a lot of confidence and, unlike many drivers of his time, He cared a lot about his physical and mental preparation. Then, after that thud, he tried to get ready to get the job done more than ever. It was after the Monaco Grand Prix that Ayrton really started to catch everyone's attention, after having done a great race. However, even though he came in second, Ayrton was still not satisfied, as he believed and knew that he could do much more at Tolman. He still got 2 more podiums that year. However, he was suspended from racing for the team after breaking his contract by signing with Lotus for next season. Ayrton arrived at Lotus in 1985. He claimed his first Formula One victory at that year's Portuguese Grand Prix. In Portugal, Pep Guardiola's brother is open. There, at that moment, the Brazilian people had just gained a new idol to be inspired. His next triumph came at the Belgian Grand Prix. He ended his first season at Lotus in 4th place in the Drivers' World Championship with 38 points and 6 podiums. In 1986, Ayrton started the season well, after finishing second in the Brazilian GP for the first time in his career. He was managing to lead the championship after winning the Spanish Grand Prix. At the United States Grand Prix, he took his second win of the year. With the end of the season, Ayrton once again finishes the championship in 4th place. In 1987, Ayrton Senna experienced a year of ups and downs. He started well, winning the Monaco Grand Prix and the United States Grand Prix in Detroit. In this way, he was able to reach the lead of the championship. However, at the Mexican Grand Prix, Ayrton ended up running on the track, after a failure in his clutch. Thus, he practically stayed out of the championship title fight, which was in the hands of his rivals Nelson Piquet and Mansell. Mansell, however, suffered an accident and ended up giving a break so that Ayrton could finish the championship in 2nd place. However, Ayrton was disqualified after finding that his car had some irregularities. And so he ended the season in 3rd place with 57 points. One point that is important to point out is that, despite all the talent Ayrton had, he did not always have the best car to race. It just proves how genius this guy was. Even though he was sometimes at a disadvantage because of his car, he still managed to overcome his opponents through all his claw. With the arrival of 1988, Ayrton Senna signed with McLaren, where he would have as a teammate the Frenchman Alain Prost. At the Monaco Grand Prix, Ayrton was simply flying, riding almost a minute ahead of the 2nd place finisher, who in this case was his close partner. However, when Ayrton became aware of the advantage he had over the Frenchman, after being warned by his team, he ended up losing some of his concentration and ended up crashing, giving the victory to his teammate. At the Japanese Grand Prix, he started very badly and couldn't start. And in this way, he fell to 17th position, but we are talking about Ayrton Senna, and still in the first few laps, he managed to recover in a spectacular way. Ayrton turned around and managed to take the lead of the race, and so he won the Japanese Grand Prix that year. From then on, the rivalry between Ayrton and Prost intensified a lot, both on the tracks and also off them. The two hardly spoke to each other anymore, not even during practice. Ayrton was so focused on winning that he often stayed late studying for his next race. Galvio Bueno reports that Ayrton's obsession was so great that there were occasions when, even when they went to dinner, Ayrton would take a map of the training sessions to continue analyzing the data he needed. At the Monaco Grand Prix, now in 1989, once again Ayrton opened up a good lead over the Frenchman and managed to come away with the victory. At the Japanese Grand Prix, Ayrton and Prost collided with their cars after the Brazilian tried to overtake the Frenchman. Ayrton still managed to get back into the race after having his car pushed by the inspectors. Soon after, he went to the pits to repair the car. From there, he returned to the track, overtaking then-leader Alessandro Nannini and winning the race. However, Ayrton was eventually disqualified after he used the exhaust area to get back on track. For many, he was robbed and totally wronged in that race. In addition, he was eventually punished and had his super license to drive suspended for some time. All this only contributed to Prost then winning his third championship that year, 1989. After that thud, he wasn't so frustrated that he even thought about abandoning his career and stopping there. But once again, his passion for the track spoke louder. In 1990, again at the Japanese Grand Prix, the dispute between Prost and Ayrton was still more fierce than ever. Prost ended up starting better and came out in front, but at the first corner, the two once again ended up colliding and ended up off the track. This time, Ayrton managed to win his second world championship. In 1991, Ayrton would compete in the Brazilian Grand Prix, that is, more than ever, he wanted to win for the first time at home, inside his homeland. And believe me, that race, without a doubt, was one of the most remarkable of his entire career. Even after having already lost practically all the marks of his McLaren and even being full of pain because of the enormous physical wear and tear he suffered in the race. Ayrton was a warrior and fought until the last minute, and all his effort turned out to be well worth it. At the same time that he was screaming celebrating the victory, Ayrton was also screaming because of the pain he was feeling. But the pride that this gene brought to the Brazilian people really is something that we will hardly see again. At the 1991 Japanese Grand Prix, after Mansell left the track, Ayrton already knew that practically the championship was in his hands. But even though he had a chance to win the race, he preferred to let his then teammate Berger pass and claim his first victory. With the end of the season in 1991, Ayrton Senna won his third world championship and was received with much celebration by the Brazilians when he returned to Brazil. At the 1992 Monaco Grand Prix, Ayrton fought an epic contest against Mansell, who undoubtedly had a much better car than his. The Williams team went on to win the championship that year. At that point in the championship, Ayrton was a bit excited about McLaren and tried to join Williams. However, that didn't end up happening, and the reason he couldn't sign with Williams was because his great rival was on that team and had a contract that prohibited Ayrton from being his teammate for the 1993 season. Ayrton had a simply historic performance at the Donington Grand Prix in England. He started fourth and soon dropped to fifth. However, even before the first lap was completed, he had already recovered and taken the lead. Even with the not so favorable. Thank you very much for watching us. Subscribe to the channel, share and leave your like and help us create more content to motivate your day.